It is Wednesday, February 25th, 2026. And if you are anywhere near the tech sector or the defense sector, or frankly just doom scrolling on your lunch break, there is a clock ticking in Washington, D.C. right now.
A very loud and very expensive clock.
Exactly. We are counting down to exactly 5:01 p.m. this Friday. And when that clock hits zero, the entire landscape of artificial intelligence, who owns it, who controls it, and who gets to use it for war, might just change forever.
It honestly sounds like the tagline for a political thriller, doesn't it? But for once, the reality is actually matching the hype. We are looking at a standoff that has essentially paralyzed the highest levels of Silicon Valley and the Pentagon.
We're talking about a head-to-head collision between two absolute heavyweights. In the blue corner, you have Anthropic. They're the creators of Claude. They are the darlings of the AI safety movement. And in the red corner, you have literally the U.S. Department of War.
And yes, just a quick reminder for anyone who maybe hasn't checked the federal org charts since the administration change, that is the official name again, and the Department of War is playing serious hardball here.
So here is the mission for today's deep dive. We've got a massive stack of sources here. We're looking at internal memos, leaked emails, legal briefs, and they all point to one single terrifying reality. The Pentagon wants unrestricted use of Anthropic's AI, and Anthropic is saying absolutely not.
Which is usually where a standard negotiation happens, right? You haggle over the price, you haggle over the terms, but the government is not haggling this time.
No, they're really not. They have pulled out the nuclear option. They are threatening to label a U.S. company a supply chain risk and invoke the Defense Production Act to actually seize the code.
Which is, I mean, it's unprecedented. We usually only see that kind of aggressive language applied to foreign adversaries or, during massive national emergencies like a global pandemic or a world war.
So today we are going to unpack this Friday ultimatum. We are going to look at the secret meeting that happened yesterday, the military operation in Venezuela that seemingly triggered this whole mess, and the really unsettling question of whether a private company can actually tell the U.S. military no.
It's the classic irresistible force meeting the immovable object. And the whole industry is just watching to see what breaks first.
Let's start with the immediate situation on the ground. Yesterday, Tuesday, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth sits down with Dario Amodei, the CEO of Anthropic. Now, the official reports say the meeting was cordial.
Right, which is diplomatic spook for nobody threw a chair. But the tension in that room was probably thick enough to cut with a knife.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And the outcome was brutal. The Pentagon delivered a very clear message. You have until Friday evening to remove your usage restrictions. They want to use Anthropic's models for, and I'm quoting directly from the memo here, all lawful purposes.
That phrase, all lawful purposes, is the absolute crux of this. Because it sounds so benign, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, just follow the law. What's the problem?
Exactly. Who could argue with following the law?
But you really have to understand the context here. To the Department of War, lawful purposes includes lethal targeting. It includes kinetic warfare. It includes massive domestic and international surveillance operations. As long as the president or Congress authorizes it, it is by definition lawful.
But Anthropic's terms of service, their core constitution basically says we don't care if it's legal. Our AI simply does not do that.
Precisely. Anthropic has built their entire brand, their whole corporate identity on being the safe AI, the one that will not help you build a biological weapon, the one that won't help you execute a cyber attack. And now the Pentagon is essentially looking at them and saying, we don't want your morality, we just want your compute.
And they have a really, really big stick to enforce this demand. If Anthropic refuses by Friday at 5:01 p.m., they lose their $200 million contract immediately.
Which, to be fair, Anthropic can probably absorb. They have billions in venture backing. Losing $200 million is painful, but it's not fatal to a company of that size.
But the Pentagon didn't stop there. And this is the part that just blew my mind when we were going through the research. They threatened to designate Anthropic as a supply chain risk.
Yeah, this is the scarlet letter of the defense world.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second, because when I hear supply chain risk, I think, ooh, your shipping containers are delayed in the port. Or maybe you bought some cheap chips from a sketchy vendor. But the sources are saying this is an existential threat.
It is the absolute kiss of death for government contracting. This designation is typically reserved for companies like Huawei or Kaspersky, firms that the government firmly believes are compromised by foreign intelligence services like China or Russia.
So they're treating a San Francisco AI lab like a hostile foreign spy agency.
Effectively, yes. If Anthropic gets slapped with this label, it outright bans any defense contractor from using their tools.
So it's not just the Pentagon stopping their direct usage.
Not at all. It's Lockheed Martin, it's Boeing, it's Northrop Grumman, it's Palantir. If any of those massive defense giants have Anthropic's code integrated into their systems, even for something totally benign like summarizing inter-office emails, they would have to rip it out immediately to remain compliant with federal law.
Wow. So you were talking about being entirely blacklisted from the entire federal ecosystem.
And the ripple effects would definitely hit the commercial sector, too. Think about banks or hospital networks. If the U.S. government publicly declares your software is a severe security risk, are you really going to install it on your secure servers?
Probably not.
Yeah.
That is a terrifying amount of leverage to hold over a company. But there was another threat in that pile of memos, one that feels even more sci-fi to me, the Defense Production Act.
The DPA, right. We heard a lot about this during COVID.
Right, to get General Motors to start making ventilators instead of cars.
Exactly. It's a Cold War-era law designed to force private industry to prioritize national defense. Usually it's purely about capacity. Stop making consumer goods and start making tanks because the country needs tanks.
But Anthropic doesn't make tanks. They make software code.
And that is exactly where we enter completely uncharted legal waters. Secretary Hegseth is threatening to use the DPA to compel Anthropic to provide their technology without the safety guardrails. Basically saying we are seizing the unrestricted version of your model in the name of urgent national security.
Can they actually do that, though? Can the government force a team of private engineers to write or unwrite code against their will? To essentially unlock features the creators decided were just too dangerous to exist in the wild?
That is the billion-dollar question right now. We have never tested the DPA on software weights before. The Pentagon is arguing that in 2026, AI dominance is just as vital to national survival as steel or uranium was in the 1940s. They are making the case that a private tech CEO should not have the unilateral power to hamstring the U.S. military.
It's a wild pivot. Because Anthropic has been working with the government for a while now. They were the very first AI lab to get onto the classified networks. They were seen as the good guys in D.C., so what changed?
Venezuela changed.
Operation Southern Spear.
Correct. Let's rewind to January 3rd, 2026. The U.S. launches a massive, highly coordinated military intervention in Venezuela.
Which, as we all know, resulted in the capture of President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Cilia Flores.
Right. Now, putting aside the massive geopolitical earthquake that caused, and it was huge, Latin America is still absolutely furious about it, there was a very specific technological detail buried deep in the after-action reports.
The sources say Anthropic's AI Claude was actually used during that operation.
Yes, through a partnership with Palantir. Palantir builds these incredible battle dashboards for the military. We're talking logistics, troop movements, real-time battlefield strategy.
Wow.
And they had actively integrated Claude to help process all that incoming data.
But Anthropic didn't know about this.
Yeah, until the shooting started. Or rather, until it stopped. Anthropic reportedly didn't know their model was being used for a kinetic operation, which is military speak for actual combat, until after the fact.
So they wake up, they check the news, they check their system logs, and realize their chatbot just helped plan a raid to topple a foreign government.
Essentially, yeah. And they freaked out. They started asking a lot of questions. They wanted to know if their strict red lines had been crossed. They wanted to audit the usage logs.
And the Pentagon found those questions annoying.
Annoying is putting it very mildly. Imagine you are the Department of War. You are executing a high-risk special operation. You have NATO and the Five Eyes supporting you. You have Brazil, Mexico, and the African Union fiercely condemning you. The world is basically on fire. And suddenly your software vendor files a support ticket saying, "Excuse me, we need to do a corporate ethics review on this previous mission."
Yeah, I can easily see how General Hegseth might not appreciate that phone call in the middle of a crisis.
It highlights a massive fundamental culture clash. The Pentagon views Anthropic's hesitation not as high-minded ethics, but as a dangerous bureaucratic blocker to war fighting. To them, hesitation on the battlefield gets soldiers killed.
So let's get specific here. What exactly are these red lines that Anthropic is willing to die on this hill for? What is the military trying to do that Anthropic is flat out forbidding?
Based on the leaked documents we have, there are two main battlegrounds. The first is autonomous weapons, specifically something called the kill chain.
The kill chain. That sounds incredibly intense. Break that down for us.
It's the operational cycle of an attack. Find, fix, track, target, engage, assess. Anthropic is absolutely adamant that their AI cannot be the entity that makes the final decision to engage. They demand a human in the loop always.
Which feels like a pretty standard sci-fi warning we should probably listen to. We really don't want the algorithm deciding who lives and who dies.
That's the standard civilian view, yes. But the military view is